Agrigento is a hilltop town situated at an altitude of 230 meters above sea level, with a mild Mediterranean climate characterized by not very harsh winters and very hot summers. It is about 5 kilometers from the sea and a destination for tourists from all around the world. A relatively busy town, today it has about 60,000 inhabitants. There are many squares and historical buildings. From the Viale della Vittoria, which the inhabitants of Agrigento call the Passeggiata, or promenade, you can enjoy an excellent view of the sea, and on clear days you can see the island of Pantelleria. In the evening, it becomes a place where young people and families meet. Lungomare Falcone Borsalino is located in San Leone, a district of Agrigento which is also its sea resort. The inhabitants of Agrigento reside there in summer for long periods. It is visited by many tourists coming from all over the world. Once you arrive in Via Atenea, one of the most important streets in the city, your gaze is immediately captured by the old buildings, some dating back to the Sicilian Baroque period. Others built at the beginning of the 20th century. Others in the 19th century. We want to imagine it as a meeting place for the well-to-do of the period, walking along the entire street, showing off the elegance of their clothes and accessories in what was the thriving pre- and post-Bourbon period. People usually strolled in the afternoons after work. This habit became customary for a long time, as many commercial and business activities were concentrated in this street. The upper-class men went to Casina di Compagnia, today called Circolo Empedocleo, a structure which is still used as a cultural centre located in the upper part of Via Atenea. People used to relax here playing cards or roulette. In 1840, there arose the need to create an opera house, but the project was not pursued until the end of the Bourbon reign in 1860. On January the 18th, 1870, work began. The building was obtained from a pre-existing Dominican convent. The new theatre was inaugurated on the 12th of January 1881. With a great ceremony that had as guests of honour Umberto I, King of Italy, and Queen Margherita. It bore the Queen's name until 1946, when it was renamed the Luigi Pirandello Theatre in honour of the Agrigentine playwright. The curvatures of the wall were traced by taking as a reference model those of Teatro La Fenice in Venice.
Dammi il braccio, mia pittina, obbedisco, signor.
It is one of the most prestigious libraries in Sicily. The name dates back to Andrea Lucchesi Palli, who was born in Messina on the 16th of April, 1691, and died in Agrigento on October the 4th, 1768. He was a bishop in the Diocese of Agrigento from 1755 to 1768. He was a cultured scholar and collector of antiquities, and gave the city all his texts and book collections. Inside the library, we find books that date back to 1400 to 1500, as well as 15th century Arab manuscripts. The library has more than 100,000 books. Going along Via Duomo, another historical street of the city, we come across the Diocesan Museum, Mudia, which is the most important historical entity of the local church, its rites and its religious traditions. Starting from the innermost part of the museum, we find the hall where His Holiness Pope Karol Wojtyła was hosted in May 1993. It houses the treasures of the cathedral and includes an artistic heritage of inestimable value. Since its creation, it has been the museum of the cathedral, which today is the seat of one of the most important archdioceses in Italy. The museum is made up of several rooms that contain sacred vestments, the treasures of the 18th and 19th century bishops, and an art collection which includes the famous Madonna with Sleeping Child, and the sleeping baby Jesus on the cross, attributed to Guido Reni and his school. Numerous silver objects, Indo-Iberian devotional ivories from the 18th and 19th centuries. Artifacts from the Holy Land, episcopal insignia, San Nicola is a medieval church. It was probably built in 1219 by Cistercian monks in a Gothic style. It is made exclusively of shell tufa. The portal is an ogee arch, while the church has a single nave and 4 chapels. Its most important attraction, however, is a sarcophagus of the highest quality, belonging to the Attic school. It represents the myth of Phaedrus and Hippolytus, and probably belonged to an illustrious Greek citizen who settled in Akragas. It has the name Dei Greci, of the Greeks, because during the Byzantine domination, masses were celebrated there using the Byzantine rite. It was a cathedral before the Cathedral of San Gerlando. The interior has 3 naves. It has Gothic features on the main facade that recall Swabian architecture. It was built between the 12th and 13th centuries and stands on the base of the ancient temple of Athena, of which only traces of the colonnade and the base in Doric style remain. It dates back to the period of Teron. The cathedral dates back to 1096. It is typically Norman and contains various artistic aspects: Gothic Chiaramontan, Arabic Norman, Renaissance Baroque. The remarkable bell tower is in Renaissance style. Inside the cathedral is the solid silver urn of Girlando di Besançon, born in the French city of the same name around 1030. He became the bishop of Girgenti in 1088 and died in Girgenti on the 25th of February 1100. Today he is the patron saint of the city. In this urn lies the embalmed body of a knight. Many argue that it is that of Brandimarte, a paladin of Charlemagne, who died in battle in Lampedusa in a duel of 3 against 3. The ceiling is coffered, and in a part of it is depicted the double-headed eagle with the coat of arms of Charles V of Habsburg. Restoration work carried out in 1663 highlights the style of Philip IV of Spain. A mixture of styles and decorative references that date back to the Spanish era can be seen. The vault of the apse is enriched with stuccos and frescoes that enhance its grandeur. In addition, the apse is rich in Baroque stuccos and enriched with flowers, wreaths, festoons, and cherubs, painted by an unknown artist of the 18th century. On the high altar stands a magnificent 17th century wooden pipe organ. It was once the capital of the Berbers, who were in conflict with the Arabs. They also wanted to occupy the island. These populations left indelible traces in the language, culture, and traditions. Today, there still exists the district called Rabato, from the Arabic Rabad, an ancient gate. The Arabs, who called their city Kerkent, made many improvements, from the construction of wells, dams, and artificial channels, to a flourishing trade in livestock, poultry, and fishing. They built mosques as well as the Rabato district, which means village. After the conquest by Muslims in 828 AD, the city continued to grow and prosper demographically and urbanistically. There were troglodytic dwellings carved into the rock in Rabad, and dwellings in stone in Hisn, which correspond to the modern-day Via Garibaldi, and which were inhabited even in recent times. In 264 BC, Akragas became the most important operational base of the Carthaginians, who had commercial and military dominance. The Battle of Agrigento was the first of the 4 land battles of the First Punic War, and the one that Rome waged for the first time outside the peninsular territory of Italy. In June 262 BC, the legions of Rome began to march on Akragas, supported by their ally Syracuse. They set up camp a few kilometers away from the city. Akragas was taken after a 6-month siege. It was sacked and the inhabitants sold as slaves. 7 years later, it was taken back by the Carthaginians, who knocked down the walls. But at the end of this war, the whole of Sicily fell into the hands of the Romans. Agrigentum, as the Romans called it, was taken back from the Carthaginians in 213 BC, signalling the start of the Second Punic War. The Romans guaranteed the so-called Pax Romana, which made the city re-flourish, and with its cereal production, the city contributed to enrich the granaries of Rome. The Sicani were a pre-Hellenist people of Sicily who were mainly engaged in agriculture. Almost all Greek and Latin historians claim that the Sicani were of Iberian origin, except Timaeus, as reported by Diodorus in one of his treatises, who stated that the Sicani were a native population who spread to all parts of Sicily following a strong eruption of Etna. Some kilometers from Agrigento, in Sant'Angelo Muxaro to be exact, excavations have brought to light numerous objects and traces dating back to their civilization. Their presence is attested by the discovery of proto-historic tombs. These are of a grotticella type, that is, rock-cut chamber tombs situated in some mountainous areas around this town. Among these, the most important is the Tomb of the Prince, which is unique in Sicily. It consists of a dome-shaped vault, tholos, and a double chamber, similar to those of the Mycenaean era. The birth of Akragas is linked to the development of the Gela polis, which was originally founded by settlers from the islands of Rhodes and Crete. Some Geloi founded it in 580 BC. The desire for conquest was probably determined by the fact that they did not want to renounce to the mercantile trade in this part of the Mediterranean, which was the ancient Mycenaean route to North Africa. Also because they knew the territory as a result of previous visits, which various archaeological finds testify to. They moved towards the territory, also attracted by the ideal geographical position, the fertility of the land, and the hilly nature of the territory, elements that favoured the growth of a polis. Greek Akragas became one of the most populated cities and one of the major centres of diffusion of this new culture. The conquest was entrusted to two oikistai, the condottieri, Aristinou and Pistilo, chosen by a group of citizens for the colonization of a land in accordance with their expansion laws. Thus was born the youngest of the Greek colonies in Sicily that had the institutions of the mother country. The Greek period lasted around 370 years. Our journey ends here, with the hope of having raised in those who have followed us the awareness that all the immense cultural and monumental heritage that has been left to us must be considered a priceless common good, and therefore must be safeguarded, not only by the responsible bodies, but also by every single citizen of the world, so that all may treasure it and pass it on to future generations. We conclude this itinerary by leaving you to the images of what was the magnificence of Akragas, love for art and timeless beauty.